Ashley Hodge, of course, covers Baylor men's basketball like a blanket, joins us on 365 Sports. We're going to also discuss the Big 12 teams, too. Ashley, best, I guess, opponent that Scott Drew has faced in the opening round in a long, long time. Your takeaway from the win and how they came back to do it.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. I think it was everything the coaching staff wanted from that game. They faced adversity. They got blitzed by a quality opponent in the first half and showed a lot of toughness and grit to come back from that adversity and end up winning the game. So they put their guys in pressure moments. They got to see what the team would be like without Ray J. Dennis because he was in foul trouble. And I think Jaden Nunn did an outstanding job taking care of the ball and help leading that comeback. So I think it gave you everything you wanted. It gave Jacoby Walter and Eve Missy a taste of what, big time college basketball is all about. And I would say they passed the test with flying colors, especially Jacoby, who played great both halves. And then Eve had a terrific end of the game that really helped elevate Baylor's opportunity to win that.
Ashley, I would say that skill set wise, this team is built more like 2021 than the last 2 years have been. And they've got a guy who can steal the ball, clearly. They've got maybe more presence down low, although they're probably never going to have a Mark Vital again because that's just a different species of basketball player. But they have guys who can score all over the place. Is that a fair comparison? Yeah,
I actually think they're more like the team 2 years ago, the James Akinjo-led team that was 15-0 to start the season and crushed Villanova and looked like they were headed towards, another potential bite at the apple, so to speak, or national championship run. And then injuries just kind of decimated that team with LJ Cryer and then James Akinjo dealing with that hip pointer. And then you had Jonathan's obviously terrible injury that took him down. Matthew Meyer was banged up. So I think it's more like that team, just because that team had a lot of length and a lot of athleticism and wasn't as good of a shooting team as the national championship team. But I do think it's like that national championship team in this regard. I think they have the competitive will to win. And I think this was the first glimpse of that. I've seen that in the scrimmages against the Vets and from reports from their two, secret scrimmages. I think they're highly competitive and I just think they're going to be a really tough out for anybody. And I think it's a good sign that they were able to, really get some separation from Auburn down the stretch, a really good Auburn team, in my opinion. I think Auburn has a chance to win the SEC.
Ashley, I don't think that Jacoby Walters' performance was any surprise to you as closely as you follow the program, but he really burst on the scene, made a statement last night. What's just kind of the conversation been like in the build-up to finally being able to see him out there in a game, and how special are we talking here? I mean, when it comes to his skill set and just how he fits into the grand scheme of things that Scott Drew likes to do.
Well, I think what makes him special is his humility. I think if you spend any time around his parents, you see where it comes from. I've heard stories. I probably relayed them on podcasts or maybe even talked to you guys about it. I can't remember. But, stories of like after practice is over, he's the one going around picking up trash, picking up water bottles and dirty towels. And they're like, hey, we got GAs for this. He's like, I can do it. He just has like no entitlement, very humble. It comes across in the way he plays. It was a quiet 28. I mean, he doesn't call a lot of attention to himself. He just plays hard, keeps his nose down, does his job, takes efficient shots. I think he's going to have ups and downs like most freshmen. As teams scout him, they're going to make him more and more a focus of trying to stop him because he's already proven himself to be, kind of the key scorer for Baylor. But, I think he's going to have a terrific season and he may go down as the best freshman in Baylor history.
Yeah, and it seems like, isn't it all about guards, and they have different type of them, and they all have a little bit of that blank in their neck. It looks like some of them would not be afraid to maybe cut somebody. I mean that in basketball terms.
Yeah, it's a good description. I think, I guess it starts with two guys that are, from, Chicago, Michigan area and Ray J. Dennis and Jaden Nunn. Ray J, had a pretty disastrous first half as far as turnovers, but he took good shots and he made key shots. Obviously, that three to tie it up was a huge shot. So he just, very calm and composed. And I don't think you're going to have a game where he turns it over more than 5 times the rest of the season. That was a tough matchup out of the gate, a little bit of an adjustment, to the big time athleticism that he's going to be facing. But I think, the fact that he missed the Gonzaga scrimmage with a bruised knee probably played into, that bad first half. But he was really good when the game was on the line, and he made great decisions and, really made the plays from a scoring standpoint that helped, Baylor win that one.
With Yves Missy, I was, when you hear a guy reclassifying, it's kind of one of two things. Either he's just that good, or, he's good enough, but get to college and get the red shirt, get the protein shakes and the weightlifting going and see what happens. But he is certainly the first part where he's just that good and ready to go, although I know they'll probably bring him out a little slower than maybe fans want.
Yeah, I mean, that first half, I was like, where is the ease that I'm expecting here? He didn't do much. Got some fouls. I think he turned it over. Just wasn't what I'd seen in practice and what I'd seen in scrimmage situations. But he sure turned that around in the second half. I think he ends up with 10 points. Had a couple dunks, a couple really key block shots. Made his free throws. Very efficient. I mean, he's a game changer. He's a guy that, I think if you give him the proper amount of minutes, I mean, he may be a double-double machine by the end of the year. Just very twitchy, athletic, incredible body control, and highly intelligent. He's a complete package, and I think Baylor fans are going to be excited to see what he looks like in March.
Ashley, what are your thoughts on Sanford Pentagon as a venue and especially for an early season matchup like this?
Man, I love that gym. I didn't go this year, but I did last year. And obviously Baylor and Scott Drew love it too. They're 2-0 with 2 9-point deficits to good teams and able to come back and win both those games. But, I think it's just, it's really cool this time of year. As you watch these games and they're in these NBA arenas and there's like 20% capacity. It just feels kind of funny, especially given, 2 really high quality opponents. And that place, it's packed. I mean, you feel like it's a high school gym, basically type of feel. 3,000, 2,900, something like that is what is the capacity. But I mean, you feel like it's a big time atmosphere. The places are full, the crowds are into it. It just has the feel of a really great big time college basketball game.
All right, so Ashley, we know that Kansas is loaded. We know Texas has what they have, and they have some good transfers. Big ones too, good ones too. Baylor has got some good ones. Who are, in your opinion, the 3 or 4, if there are more than that, teams to beat to win the Big 12 regular season title?
Well, I think Kansas, obviously, because of their ability to go undefeated at home or only drop 1, is always going to be in the conversation. Bill Self has a lot of skins on the wall. But, they don't have a lot of depth. And I am very curious to see how Hunter Dickinson does in these high ball screens and can he be effective? Cause he's not the best defender in the world. So I think there's teams that can take advantage of him. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to watch play out. Illinois certainly did when they had an exhibition game against them. But, I'd say Houston, is going to be up there. But if you're looking for dark horses, I really think Iowa State and TCU are 2 teams that could really surprise people this year. I know I'm a little down on Texas's roster. I don't think they're going to be in the hunt. I'm a little skeptical of Houston too. I just don't know how the adjustment will happen for them in year one. But I do think Iowa State and TCU have quality rosters, and I think they're 2 teams to watch.
My thought on Houston. Other like Texas has Mac Asmus, and we'll see how that changes everything. But my thought on Houston is they're probably going to be really, really good, but people will forget about them because they won't be 28-2. They're going to be because they're going to lose games that they playing against harder teams.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's kind of like Texas and Houston are more built like Baylor was last year. And we saw the issues with the smaller guards And I mean, these coaches are so good. They're just able to take advantage of mismatches. So when you're starting, or playing 2 or 3 guards that are 6'1" and under, I mean, there's some teams out there, including Baylor, that can really take advantage of that. And, it's personnel is always important, especially defensively. And I really like the way Baylor's constructed this year. I think they're more like the team 2 years ago and even like a Connecticut last year. I mean, they just have that length, athleticism, and depth that you need to make a big run in March.
You're no stranger to Texas Tech's new head coach, given the Baylor ties there.
Yeah.
Texas Tech makes their debut tonight with Grant McCasland. Just what are your thoughts on that the start of that tenure and what he's going to bring to the Red Raiders?
Well, he's a great coach. He's a scary coach, really. I mean, he's got a track record for putting some of the best defenses out there, and very hard nosed. I think that they're going to be really good in the backcourt. I think their backcourt's tough, starting with Pop Isaacs and then Joe Toussaint, transfer from West Virginia. They got some players in the backcourt, and then they got Cambridge from Arizona State. But that's where I think they'll struggle. I don't think they have the quality size to do more than finish middle of the pack in the Big 12 this year. But I think Grant's going to have them, really competitive, and that's going to be a hellish place to go get a win, Lubbock, this year and probably every year going forward.
Is this the toughest non-conference schedule that Scott Drew has put together among many that have been really, really good?
Yeah, I think back to that year when they first got their first number 1 ranking. The King McClure, Ish Wainwright, Jonathan Motley team. Those guys played Louisville in that tournament, down in the Bahamas. They played Michigan State. They played VCU. They had Xavier at home, who was a top 10 team that year. Oregon, who was a top 10 team that year. So that one probably is in the conversation. And they passed all those tests. They were undefeated going to West Virginia once Big 12 play started. But this one is unique because, I mean, obviously Duke is going to be, preseason top 5. Michigan State, before they lost to James Madison, was preseason top 5. And then of course the Auburn game is tough. And then you go to that, tournament in Brooklyn where you might get Florida. Florida's got a really good roster. So I think it's up there. But I might give the nod to that 2017 non-conference schedule just because they played so many great teams that year.
Ashley, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Baylor winning against Auburn. Obviously the Big 12 will be really good. And I like what he said. Houston, or Paul, you asked a question about Houston's going to be good. They'll be a really good tournament team. It just won't be 29-2. It might be 24-8 or something like that because of how deep the conference is. But don't underestimate Kelvin Sampson, a phenomenal coach with the players that he has. I didn't see what LJ